What's up guys, my name's Brandon and today we're going to be running a speed test between the new 2019 iPod Touch 7th generation and the 2016 iPhone SE. So these are actually two very similar devices, and if you don't want to buy the new iPod Touch, the iPhone SE is going to be a popular alternative. Both of these devices have the same 4-inch display and the same resolution, both have a headphone jack on the bottom, and both can be purchased for a very cheap price. But when we take a look inside of these devices, the iPhone SE does have a slightly older chipset with the A9 chip, while the iPod Touch has Apple's A10 Fusion chip from 2016, and both devices do also have 2 GB of RAM. So on paper, the iPhone SE should be slower than the new iPod Touch 7th generation, but that's the point of this speed test. I want to see just how much slower, or if it's slower at all, than the new iPod Touch. And just for reference, both of these devices are running the latest iOS version, iOS 12.3.1. So let's go ahead and start off with a boot up test. So we're going to press the power button on top of both devices here in 3, 2, 1. Pressing at the exact same time here, and we have a visual first on the iPhone SE, but let's see if that makes a difference in the end. Let's see if the iPod Touch can win the boot up test. The iPod Touch actually just beat the iPhone 7 in a boot up test. If you missed that speed test video, I will leave it linked up in the cards. But let's see if it can beat the iPhone SE. And yes, it did beat the iPhone SE barely. That was less than a second difference. Pretty much the same boot up time, but it looked like the iPod Touch did win the boot up test. Now, when it comes to getting inside the phone, it's going to be a lot quicker on the iPhone SE. Let me just swap these real quick so I could show you how much quicker it is on the iPhone SE versus the iPod Touch. So we have Touch ID, of course, on the iPhone SE, which means we could just put our fingerprint in there and get into the phone very quickly. Whereas on the iPod Touch, we do have no Touch ID or no Face ID. We have to put in our passcode every time. So unlocking and getting into the phone is always going to be quicker on any device with biometric security, in this case, the iPhone SE. All right, so let's go ahead and launch some applications. So we're going to start off with Fortnite in 3, 2, 1. Fortnite does now run on the new iPod Touch. The 6th generation did not run Fortnite, but now it does run on the 7th generation iPod Touch. All right, so the iPod Touch did get to this white loading screen first, and yes, the iPod Touch did beat the iPhone SE. There we go, fully loaded now on the iPod Touch. Now, it does take a while, especially compared to modern devices, but you can see the iPod Touch definitely outperforming the iPhone SE here when it comes to our first gaming application, which is Fortnite. So you can see just now finished loading up there. Let's go ahead and move on to PUBG. Press at the same time there. Still on the final loading screen, and yes, the iPhone did beat the iPod here when it comes to PUBG. Now let's go ahead and launch up Asphalt 9. Again, press at the exact same time. And the iPhone SE did beat the iPod Touch once again. So for some reason, with Fortnite, it loaded up much quicker on the iPod Touch, but for both the other games, they loaded up first on the iPhone SE. So some very interesting results right away. So let's go ahead and move on to some social media applications, starting off with Twitter in 3, 2, 1. Let's see which one loads up first. We are logged in on both devices, so should be the same. And we got content first. Nope. Well, yes, the iPod Touch. It doesn't look like we loaded up here first. Actually, we did load up first here on the iPhone SE. I was checking for the little button right there at the bottom that showed we had our new tweet. So the iPhone SE did win there, and that one was a little bit tricky. So we're going to run it back one more time just to make sure the iPhone SE is faster at opening up Twitter in 3, 2, 1. Let's see if we have the same result here. And yes, the iPhone SE, once again, definitely a little bit faster than the iPod Touch. Let's go into YouTube. Press at the same time there once again, and the iPhone SE once again faster than the iPod Touch. So very interesting, because once again, we do have an older chipset on the iPhone SE. Same amount of RAM, same display, same resolution, everything, but an older chip. And that just proves that we have an underclocked CPU here on the iPod Touch, which once again is very disappointing, especially if you just picked up an iPod Touch 7th generation. You would expect it to be a lot faster than this, especially given it's an Apple device released in 2019. So kind of embarrassing here that the iPhone SE with a generation older chipset is still beating this phone, especially since this came out in 2016. Let's go ahead and do Amazon. And fully loaded up content on the iPhone SE first. And now let's do Instagram. We are not logged in, but I just want to see which one pops up first, and the iPhone SE once again. And now I just want to do a scrolling test on Twitter. I did this with the iPhone 7 as well. I want to see if it's any different here with the iPhone SE. So what I'm looking at in this test is to see which one actually stutters more when it comes to scrolling and going through a lot of things very quickly. So as we scroll down my Twitter timeline, we're going to see if there's any kind of stutter. and which one is more apparent. So looks about even right now. For some reason, the iPod Touch does not load a lot of content in Twitter. I'm not really sure why that is. Let's just go to my mentions now. And they seem about even. I don't really see a lot of stutter on either device. And if it does stutter, it's about the same on both. Let's go ahead to the Explore tab here. And same scenario here. If anything, it's struggling more on the iPod Touch. The iPhone SE actually seems more smooth when it comes to scrolling and just the overall stutter on the device, but not a huge difference there. So now let's go ahead and look at the share sheet on both. So we're going to pull this up at the same time. 3, 2, 1. And that looked pretty much identical. We're going to do it one more time here. 3, 2, 1. And it looked like the iPhone SE was a little bit faster that time, but very close, not going to really be a big difference in day-to-day usage. And now let's test out the 2 gigabytes of RAM that we have on both devices and see if we have to relaunch any applications, starting up with Fortnite. And it looks like we do have to fully relaunch Fortnite, even though we did not really have that many applications open. Let's do PUBG. And it looks like PUBG does not have to relaunch at all. Let's do Asphalt 9. And yes, we do have to do a small restart there, small relaunch for both, not a full restart. Let's go into Twitter, which we just had open. Twitter, we're right where we left off. YouTube, no relaunch. Amazon, no relaunch. So it looked like the only ones are going to be the games that have to relaunch, which is not surprising given we have 2 gigabytes of RAM here. And this is the struggle of having a 16 gigabyte device. I just had to delete PUBG and Asphalt 9 just to be able to install the AnTuTu benchmark application. So if you still have a 16 gigabyte phone in 2019, I don't know how you do it because you can't even download a lot of apps without having to delete things. So really unfortunate there, I had to delete those, but we are going to run an AnTuTu benchmark test now on both devices and see what kind of scores we get. We already know what we got on the iPod Touch, but I'm going to run it just one more time and put it up against the iPhone SE. So I will be back once this is finished up and I'll share the scores with you. All right, so we are back now and it's really not a surprise. The iPod Touch 7th generation does have a higher score than the iPhone SE in every single category. So that's CPU, GPU, UX, and memory. And the only reason I say this is expected is because it does have the A10 Fusion chip versus the A9 chip on the iPhone SE. Now, this definitely shows you guys that you should not just take what's on paper and use that as your judgment to see which one is faster, because clearly in this test, the iPhone SE was faster than the iPod Touch in most categories and most instances, but the iPod Touch does score better in benchmarks and does even have a newer chipset. But once again, Apple did underclock the iPod Touch 7th generation for some odd reason, so it's not as fast as it could be, but still, that just proves that you shouldn't just take everything that's put on paper and take that and run with it, because the iPhone SE is definitely faster than the iPod Touch in most categories. Now we do still have one test left and we are going to test the web browsing speed. All right, so we're going to do producthunt.com first, then 3, 2, 1. And looks like the iPod Touch, yes, the iPod Touch loaded up just a few seconds faster, actually like 1 second faster than the iPhone SE. Now we're going to go to ESPN.com in 3, 2, 1. And looks like the iPod Touch, we still have that ad to load right there, and that was pretty much the same time it looked like. Maybe the iPod Touch by a couple milliseconds, but that looked pretty much identical. We're going to do reddit.com in 3, 2, 1. And that was literally identical there. No difference in speed in terms of loading up reddit.com. So we're going to try one more site. We'll just do, let's just do for fun, Samsung.com. So 3, 2, 1. Press to go at the exact same time. Let's see which one loads up Samsung first. And once again, that was pretty much identical. Now this bottom little white bar did show up first on the iPod Touch, but that was not based on the web content. That was literally exactly the same. So it's going to be a tie when it comes to web browsing. And I'd have to give the win to the iPhone SE in every other category besides, of course, the boot up test, because we did have Fortnite load up first on the iPod Touch, but PUBG and Asphalt 9 did load up first on the iPhone SE, along with the social media applications. So definitely some interesting results there. I think a lot of people just went ahead and judged the iPhone SE as being a slower device than the iPod Touch, but I think the speed test may surprise a lot of people and show that the iPhone SE is still a very capable device, especially for the super cheap price point that you can get it at. You can get a new iPhone SE for cheaper than a new iPod Touch 7th generation. So let me know what you guys thought about this speed test down in the comment section below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. Do you have an iPhone SE? Do you have an iPod Touch 7? What are your thoughts? Are you going to be upgrading soon? I'm definitely going to be testing these two out in iOS 13 as well, so definitely stay tuned for content on that. And of course, if you guys did enjoy the video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe for a lot more content coming very, very soon here to the channel. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.